Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It was a wholesome family film, and now they've turned it into woke trash.
Get into exactly what's going on with Bob Iger and how he recently was forced to resign due to the Snow White drama, due to the Snow White backlash and the box office collapse, and a lot more catered to that. The board believes that Iger made DEI too obvious in their properties to the point that their ideology was too upfront and created mainstream backlash. Now, there are already 3 in the roster to take over Bob Iger as Disney's CEO. However, the twist here is that they are still looking for a CEO that would utilize DEI in a more careful and calculated way, regardless of Disney being investigated by the FCC.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler. Evie Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse, not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
In a saga that has left insiders reeling, the headline, Rachel Zegler demands $200 million after emergency meeting with Disney lawyers, isn't just a fleeting moment of scandal. It's the beginning of a dramatic unfolding story that has captured the attention of audiences and industry experts alike.
I am in the thick of rehearsals for Romeo plus Juliet, so I'm going to get out of here. Bye for now. The Variety story notes how a couple of minutes after posting this, she replied to her own tweet and wrote, "And always remember, free Palestine."
Joe Rogan and Bill Maher go off on Rachel Zegler's woke Snow White disaster. This isn't just another celebrity spat. It's a seismic event that has left studios reeling, audiences divided, and critics questioning every decision made by Disney.
The controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture wars. Oh, have we been following the Snow White?
Actually, the first time hearing of this.
Today, we dive into how one star's over-the-top attitude and questionable studio choices collided head-on with public outrage, turning what could have been a magical reimagining into an unforgettable train wreck.
The 2 stars are Gal Gadot,
before you,
who she was in the Israeli Defense Forces. She's Israeli, and then Rachel Zegler plays Snow White. I think Gal plays the. I was not a child, so I don't follow. I don't know fairy tales. I never read comic books. But something is this the one with the poison apple and the whatever it is?
Yes.
It all started when Disney, in a bid to modernize a timeless classic, decided to replace the beloved Seven Dwarfs with an uncanny cluster of CGI characters.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. And
with a production cost of a staggering $270 million, and an additional $230 million spent on marketing, the project promised an innovative spin on the classic fairy tale. Instead, it delivered a hollow, soulless spectacle devoid of the charm that made the original so endearing.
Prince Charming in the traditional fairy tale and in the 1937 movie has been replaced by a common criminal.
Early on, Rachel Zegler, once celebrated as West Side Story's rising star, began making headlines with her unfiltered interviews. She dismissed the 1937 classic as weird and derogatorily labeled the original prince as nothing more than a creeper, boldly asserting that anyone expecting a genuine love story should simply stay home.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Her comments didn't just ruffle feathers, they ignited a firestorm that spread like wildfire. Almost immediately, the internet exploded. Memes, viral clips, and scathing commentary flooded every social media platform. It wasn't long before Joe Rogan and Bill Maher stepped in with their own brutal takes,
Okay, so they're in. And Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infatata is the only global solution. So the two stars hate each other.
Rogan, known for his unfiltered commentary, dissected every misstep in a no-holds-barred style that resonated with millions of viewers tired of Hollywood's latest misfires. Meanwhile, Bill Maher, with his trademark wit, lambasted the film's woke approach and the arrogance he perceived in Zegler's dismissive attitude toward the classic tale.
Well, here's actually Rachel Zegler, who is the new Snow White, and she's talking about Snow White being woke.
Can you tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age, and there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all. And for Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town who's... We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's how...
And you wonder why people are turning from this stuff.
Their words echoed far and wide, turning this controversy into a global phenomenon and setting a new standard for public accountability in the entertainment world. The disaster at the box office only confirmed what many had feared. The film managed a dismal $43 million, a figure so abysmal it quickly earned the label of the worst-performing live-action remake in Disney's recent history.
It was a wholesome family film, and now they've turned it into woke trash.
Critics and audiences alike lambasted the film for its over-the-top modernizations and for stripping away the warmth and romance that had defined the original. Every financial shortfall was mirrored by an avalanche of negative reviews, and the public backlash grew fiercer with every passing day. Joe Rogan's piercing insights and Bill Maher's biting sarcasm underscored the point. A high budget and a modern twist are no substitute for a story's heart and soul. Behind the glitz and glamour, the chaos was even more evident off-screen. Insiders revealed a tangled web of internal conflicts, casting controversies, and last-minute production changes that compounded the film's inevitable downfall.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting, maybe in the history of the film industry.
The studio's attempt to reshape Snow White for a new generation clashed violently with the deep-seated nostalgia of longtime fans. Every poorly conceived decision, every rushed production call, added fuel to an already raging inferno of criticism.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she is a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
As the behind-the-scenes drama unfolded, both Rogan and Maher seized the opportunity to highlight the glaring disconnect between modern ambition and the respect for the source material, a disconnect that ultimately proved fatal. As the fallout deepened, the impact on Rachel Zegler's career became painfully apparent.
Tweet from Eric Daughtry. Just in, an enormous cultural failure, Disney's Snow White, which cost $250 million to produce, raked in a miserable $43 million during its premiere, and that's from the AP. Other Disney remakes in the same amount of time, Lion King did $1.6 billion, Cinderella $67.9 million, Dumbo $46 million, and you can see people just don't want to be bludgeoned.
Once hailed as Hollywood's new hope, her reputation now teeters on the brink of collapse. Her dismissive remarks about a cherished classic and her aggressive stance on modernizing the narrative have alienated a vast swath of the audience.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Leave it the alone.
Studio executives are reportedly rethinking future projects involving her, and her every word is now scrutinized by a public that has little patience for arrogance. Both Joe Rogan and Bill Maher have underscored this transformation, portraying Zegler not as a star in ascendance, but as a cautionary tale in the era of social media, a reminder that unchecked ego can quickly undo years of promise. Yet, this saga is about much more than one actress's misstep. It's become a cultural touchstone, a vivid illustration of how the collision of modern ideology with timeless storytelling can lead to spectacular failure. The incident has forced the industry to re-examine its approach to remakes.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Can a film with astronomical spending survive when it loses the essence that made its source material iconic? Analysts, fans, and critics are now engaged in a heated debate about the future of such remakes. Andrew Bold commentary from Joe Rogan and Bill Maher have become rallying cries, reminding everyone that innovation must always be tempered with respect for legacy. Moreover, the controversy has sparked broader discussions about the state of celebrity culture and the influence of social media. In today's digital age, a single ill-considered comment can redefine a career in an instant, and every public figure is held accountable in real time. The Snow White disaster has become a case study in how the intersection of art, commerce, and personal expression can spiral out of control. It's a brutal reminder that while reinvention is essential, it must never come at the expense of what made the original story so beloved. And as Joe Rogan and Bill Maher continue to weigh in, their words serve as both a warning and a call to action for creators everywhere. In the final analysis, the catastrophic meltdown of Disney's Snow White remake and the fierce backlash from voices like Joe Rogan and Bill Maher serves as a stark illustration of what happens when modern ambition oversteps its bounds. It forces us to ask, can Hollywood ever strike the right balance between innovation and tradition? Or will we continue to witness high-budget disasters born from a misguided attempt to rewrite the past?
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, it's 7 of them.
That has, and there's seven dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right. This is demeaning. And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
Yeah. As debates rage and every new comment further fuels the controversy, one thing remains clear. In this new era of entertainment, respect for timeless storytelling isn't just desirable, it's absolutely essential. So, what do you think? Is this the final nail in the coffin for Rachel Zegler's career? Or is there still a chance for redemption in the eyes of an audience that craves authenticity? Will Hollywood learn to honor its cherished classics? Or are we destined to see more disasters fueled by unchecked ambition and clashing ideologies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Rachel Zegler just accomplished what industry insiders thought impossible, potentially triggering a corporate implosion at Disney so catastrophic, it could force CEO Bob Iger out the door months before his planned retirement. This isn't speculation about some distant future. It's happening right now behind closed doors at Disney headquarters, where emergency meetings have become the new normal and executives are scrambling to contain the fallout.
A shocking twist and turn of events that took place during an emergency meeting/call that was held between both Bob Iger and the board. It turns out that Iger made a swift proposal, get this, that the board didn't expect that created major backlash.
Leaked recordings from these crisis meetings paint a shocking picture. Shouting matches erupting in once orderly boardrooms, investors threatening to pull millions in funding, and finger-pointing that has shattered the carefully crafted image of Disney's leadership team.
Now, there is no doubt about it that Bob Iger handled the whole Snow White drama poorly and in a very weak way, I must add. We already know that he could have done something about this 2.5 years ago. He could have really prevented themselves from dealing with this box office failure, and that's ultimately what led to a constant struggle between himself and some of the board of directors, many of which, by the way, right now are beginning to turn on Bob Iger.
One insider described the atmosphere as not just tense, it's nuclear. At the center of this corporate earthquake, a Snow White remake that has transformed from anticipated blockbuster to career-ending disaster. During a recent emergency call between Iger and Disney's board, tensions reached breaking point when the CEO made an unexpected proposal that reportedly blindsided everyone present. The board's reaction was swift and merciless, setting in motion what could become the most dramatic leadership shakeup in Disney's modern history. And it all began when one actress stepped into the spotlight and said just a little too much. Rachel Zegler's casting as Snow White initially seemed like a bold, forward-thinking choice for the studio.
Rachel Zegler is a loudmouth dope.
No, I've been getting a lot of questions about, how do I feel? Let's address the elephant in the room.
Young, talented, and fresh off her success in West Side Story, she represented Disney's vision for modernizing its classics. But that vision quickly blurred when Zegler began giving interviews about the role. Rather than expressing honor at joining Disney's legacy, she took aim at it.
That is a very telltale sign that the Walt Disney Company did so much problems with the Snow White movie. They did so many different issues with that movie based on the Rachel Zegler situation, based on the drama between both Rachel and Gal Gadot, and that's just the beginning of everything. They had 3 rounds of reshoots. 2 of the reshoot phases, by the way, really set them back tens of millions of dollars.
In clips that would later go viral for all the wrong reasons, Zegler dismissed Prince Charming as a stalker, called the original story outdated and dangerous, and repeatedly mocked the very concept of a princess finding love, the cornerstone of the fairy tale that launched Disney's animation empire. Her tone wasn't just critical. Many viewers found it smug and condescending toward the generations who had treasured the original film.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
She wasn't just reimagining Snow White, a former Disney marketing executive explained. She was talking down to everyone who ever loved the character. It felt like she thought she was better than the role she was hired to play. The backlash was immediate and intense. Social media erupted with millions of views on compilation videos of her most controversial statements. Longtime Disney fans expressed betrayal. Families questioned the company's direction, and even casual moviegoers wondered why someone would accept a role only to criticize its foundation.
It was supposed to come out like a year and a half ago, and then we went after them so hard because of their variety of ridiculous sins that they actually went into full-scale reshoots on Snow White when we announced that we had a competitor.
What happened next defied all public relations logic. Disney said nothing. Not a word of clarification, no attempt to contextualize Zegler's comments, no public statement acknowledging fan concerns. Bob Iger, the man once praised for his communication skills and market instincts, chose silence as his strategy. That silence created a vacuum instantly filled with growing resentment. It was the textbook example of how not to handle a PR crisis, noted a crisis management consultant who has worked with several major studios. They let a manageable controversy transform into a full-blown reputation disaster. The message fans received was clear: Disney doesn't care what you think.
Rachel Zegler was a bad decision from day one. She can sing, I'll give her that, but she's got a lot of power, but absolutely no range. Plus, on the flip side, she can't act, and she's a smug big mouth, which even Disney now admits they couldn't control.
While the public controversy raged, behind the scenes, the Snow White production was spiraling into chaos. The budget had already ballooned past $200 million, not including marketing costs, when early test screenings delivered devastating news. Audiences weren't just disappointed, they were confused and alienated by the film's tone, messaging, and dramatic departures from the beloved story. Internal reports reveal that Disney authorized not 1, not 2, but 3 complete rounds of reshoots.
Iger reportedly was very desperate, where he also proposed a plan to the board to remake Snow White entirely, with 0 agendas attached, and to exclude the typical Disney message. Regardless of abandoning the top 3 shareholders, Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock, the board reportedly didn't believe in Iger's proposal and is now officially forcing him to resign, either by the end of this year or by early 2026, either of which will be well before his previous plans to step down.
An almost unprecedented move that added tens of millions to the already bloated budget. Sources close to the production claim tensions between Zegler and co-star Gal Gadot, cast as the evil queen, created a difficult atmosphere on set, with disagreements over the film's direction spilling into uncomfortable moments during press events. They were trying to fix a foundational problem with Band-Aids, said one production insider. The core issue wasn't the execution, it was the concept.
And this is exactly why I always call him Bob Iger. He's gonna lie, he's gonna say whatever he has to say to gain the trust of shareholders, customers, to string them along into the following year. He will do whatever is possible to allow people to believe in him. And that's why you have him going into damage control over Snow White, saying all these nonsense things about how there's no ideology there's no message that's being thrown around in the movie at all, that people are crazy, that people don't even know what the word agenda even means, all these nonsense.
They'd strayed so far from what made Snow White magical that no amount of reshoots could bring that magic back. The studio's solution followed a familiar pattern. Delay the release, rework the most problematic scenes, then delay again. Each announcement further damaged public perception, creating the impression of a troubled production desperately trying to save itself. By the time the film finally limped into theaters, audience expectations were rock bottom. Then came the knockout punch. Snow White's dismal $160 million global box office performance wasn't just disappointing, it was catastrophic for a film with such an enormous budget and marketing campaign. Making the failure even more painful, Minecraft. The movie launched shortly after and dominated the family audience, pulling in over $300 million in its opening weekend alone. The contrast could not have been more stark.
And when you compare the two, Snow White, $160-some million at the box office worldwide, abysmal by the way, for a Disney movie at that. And then you look at a Minecraft movie, which got well over $300 million worldwide in just its opening weekend.
A fun, straightforward family film with zero controversy completely overshadowed Disney's carefully crafted remake. The humiliation was total. Headlines around the world declared Snow White a failure. Critics panned it as soulless and confused, and social media erupted with memes mocking the film as the perfect symbol of everything wrong with modern Disney. For a company built on fairy tale success stories, this was a nightmare with no happy ending in sight.
The studio released their Snow White remake starring Rachel Zegler, and in the process shattered more little girls' dreams than Harvey Weinstein. That's why no one bothered to show up. Empty theaters across the country tell the true story about this crime against cinema.
Enjoying the vibe and excitement of the streets of London.
It was against this backdrop that Bob Iger found himself fighting for his professional life during an emergency board call that insiders describe as the most tense corporate meeting I've ever witnessed. Visibly rattled according to those present, Iger made a stunning proposal. Extend his tenure as CEO through 2028, 2 full years beyond his previously announced retirement date of 2026. His pitch included a bold pledge to remake Snow White yet again, but this time the right way, without what he described as distractions or modern reinterpretations. Iger reportedly promised a return to Disney's storytelling roots with clear heroes, heartfelt romance, and timeless charm that unites audiences rather than divides them. It was essentially an admission that the strategy he had championed had failed spectacularly. The board's response was brutal. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the call, more than 80% of board members immediately rejected Iger's proposal. The discussion quickly shifted from damage control to succession planning, with several members openly suggesting Iger should resign by the end of this year or early 2026 at the latest, well before his planned departure. It wasn't just a rejection, said one source familiar with the call. It was a vote of no confidence. Board members accused him of trying to gaslight them, of attempting to rewrite the very decisions he once championed. The mood shifted from crisis management to regime change in real time. The Snow White disaster may have been the breaking point, but the boardroom revolt has been building for years. Under Iger's second tenure, Disney has faced a perfect storm of challenges. Theme park attendance has declined. Disney Plus continues to lose subscribers despite massive investment. Merchandise sales have flatlined, and most embarrassingly, rival studios like Universal and Paramount have consistently outperformed Disney at the box office, something unthinkable just a few years ago. Adding to Iger's troubles, sources claim the FCC is reportedly investigating Disney for alleged mishandling of corporate messaging related to diversity programs, creating yet another potential crisis on the horizon. For a board already losing patience, it was simply too much. They see him now as a liability, not an asset, explained a consultant who works closely with several Disney investors. The narrative of Bob Iger as the brilliant visionary who built the modern Disney empire has crumbled. Now he's viewed as the captain who steered the ship directly into an iceberg while insisting everything was fine.
This movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter. So from the casting to the class politics, it all was just...
As the board begins the process of forcing Iger's exit, industry insiders report a strategic shift is already underway. 3 potential CEO candidates are reportedly being considered, with a clear mandate: focus on storytelling first, messaging second. The board isn't abandoning diversity or inclusion, but wants a more subtle, story-driven approach that doesn't alienate core audiences. Multiple projects described as agenda-heavy have reportedly been shelved in recent weeks as Disney pivots toward what one executive called 4-quadrant films, movies designed to appeal to all demographic groups without political or ideological overtones that might divide audiences. Iger, according to those close to him, is furious at what he views as betrayal. After returning as CEO in 2022 with promises to stabilize Disney, following Bob Chapek's controversial tenure, he believed he deserved one last chance to correct course. Instead, he's facing the humiliating prospect of being forced out with his legacy in tatters. He built Disney into a global powerhouse during his first run as CEO, noted a former Disney executive. Now he might be remembered as the man who lost the magic, the leader who confused modernization with alienation and paid the ultimate professional price. The live-action remake of Snow White was conceived as a bold reimagining of a timeless classic, complete with an astronomical production budget and sky-high expectations. From the very start, the project promised a fresh take on a beloved tale, fusing modern sensibilities with the magic that only Disney can deliver.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
I'm getting on across the block here. Yeah, hold on.
All right. Congrats, Rachel.
Yet beneath the glittering surface and lavish sets, there were early hints of discord, a tension that seemed to lurk just out of sight, waiting to shatter the dream. Rumors of miscommunications and misaligned visions began circulating even before production wrapped.
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person,
adding an unsettling subtext to what many assumed would be a flawless execution. Matters took an unexpected turn when reports emerged of an emergency meeting held between Disney's legal team and star Rachel Zegler. Allegations of contractual breaches and concerns over reputational damage sent shockwaves through the industry.
Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged. Zegler isn't the only one who has made political statements, though. Her co-star Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, expressed her staunch support for Israel.
What began as a routine discussion about creative differences quickly spiraled into a high-stakes legal confrontation. Insiders suggest that the meeting was convened to address serious issues that had reached a tipping point, marking a dramatic departure from what was once a promising collaboration. The sudden escalation forced a re-examination of long-held studio policies and raised hard questions about how far a performer's personal brand can deviate from corporate guidelines.
Snow White's budget was around $240 to $270 million. It has made $43 million domestically so far and around $84 million globally per Box Office Pro.
Adding fuel to the fire was the unexpected way in which social media played a role in escalating the situation. A seemingly ordinary promotional tweet from Zegler morphed into a wildfire of controversy when it mingled with offhand political commentary. The post resonated far beyond its original intent, sparking debates that pitted loyal fans against critical voices and drawing attention from every corner of the internet. Suddenly, a single tweet became the catalyst for an industry-wide conversation about the responsibilities of a top-billed talent and the pressures of navigating public perception in the digital age.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
This digital uproar only deepened the scrutiny placed on both the actress and the studio, intensifying the stakes of the legal encounter. Behind the scenes, the turmoil appears even more intricate than the public controversies suggest. Leaked communications and insider accounts paint a picture of internal sabotage and corporate politicking, a complex web of creative disagreements and conflicting strategic visions. Long-standing tensions between marketing teams and production executives have surfaced, revealing a deeper fracture within Disney's ranks. What was initially an ambitious reinterpretation of a cherished story had transformed into a battleground where every word, every tweet, and every offhand remark was being dissected for potential missteps.
EV Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
The pressure to balance artistic reinvention with fan expectations has never been higher, leaving little room for error in an environment where every decision is magnified.
I'll quickly mention this. The son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, Jonah Platt is the son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler and blaming her for the film's catastrophic failure at the box office.
At the heart of the unfolding drama lies a fundamental clash between the enduring legacy of Disney's brand and the desire for creative freedom among its leading talent. While the studio is renowned for its meticulous attention to preserving the magic of its classics, the modern era demands a fresh and progressive perspective, one that sometimes stands at odds with time-honored traditions.
I mean, he's totally right. Now, of course, as we covered, the movie is terrible anyway in its own right. It was probably going to underperform regardless. People are tired of the soulless cash grab remake thing.
In this case, the dispute centers on whether Zegler's offhand remarks and promotional statements overstepped contractual boundaries or were, in fact, part of a broader effort to modernize an age-old narrative. This collision of priorities has ignited a fierce debate. Should legacy be sacrificed for innovation, or can both coexist without compromising the integrity of the original vision? The ripple effects of this high-profile dispute are being felt far beyond the studio lot. Fans of the classic Snow White, longtime Disney enthusiasts, and even cautious investors have all found themselves drawn into a debate that touches on financial risk, reputational damage, and the very soul of a brand that has defined an entire era of cinematic storytelling.
The movie has all kinds of problems that could be pinned partly on the producer. Like, the producer did not do a good job. Nobody who produced this movie did a good job.
Critics and supporters alike are analyzing every nuance, weighing the implications of a single tweet against decades of cinematic tradition. Every stakeholder now faces the unsettling question, can a beloved empire maintain its magic when internal divisions begin to leak into the public arena?
Apart from all of the political controversy started by the actress. So the movie had all kinds of problems creatively and conceptually.
As the story reaches its turning point, the audience is left to wonder whether a resolution is even possible. Can negotiations between Zegler and Disney's legal eagles bridge the chasm that has rapidly widened between creative ambition and corporate oversight? Or is the situation destined to spiral into a prolonged legal showdown that might set a new precedent in Hollywood? The potential fallout from this clash not only threatens the future of the film itself, but also calls into question the balance between artistic innovation and strict contractual discipline across the entire entertainment industry.
There's no doubt that she drove the final nail into this movie's coffin. She probably drove the final 2 or 3 nails into the coffin.
New layers continue to emerge as further details come to light. Some insiders report that even before the emergency meeting, there were signs of mounting pressure on both sides. Creative teams clashing with corporate strategists and voices from within the project urging a return to fundamentals, even as others pushed for bolder reinterpretations. This internal tug-of-war has led to a climate of uncertainty where every decision is both a creative risk and a legal liability.
And a lot of what you see with Zegler is really just this pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work.
Observers note that the situation has morphed into a test case for the modern entertainment industry, where the balance between legacy and innovation is constantly being renegotiated. In the final analysis, what we are witnessing is a transformation of a well-loved narrative into a cautionary tale of ambition, conflict, and the high price of reinvention. The unfolding events force us to confront the complex interplay between personal expression and corporate responsibility, serving as a stark reminder that every creative endeavor carries risks that can turn public adoration into intense scrutiny in the blink of an eye. With the stakes as high as $200 million, the outcome of this clash is poised to leave an indelible mark not only on the legacy of Snow White, but on the future strategies of major studios in a rapidly evolving media landscape. The saga of Rachel Zegler and the Disney legal debacle is far from over. As whispers of further legal maneuvers and internal realignments grow louder, one thing remains clear. In a world where every comment and tweet can spark a revolution, the line between artistic freedom and contractual obligation is more fragile than ever. As industry watchers dissect every development, they ponder whether such high-stakes confrontations will force studios to overhaul their approach to talent management and creative control. Will this controversy serve as a catalyst for change, compelling a more balanced dialogue between creative innovation and brand preservation? Or will it cement a precedent that further complicates the relationship between artists and the corporate behemoths they serve?